Good evening, everyone. We are we have entered into a unprecedented times of Corona in our era, and we cannot meet each other, and we cannot have very close proximity with the patients, and even the patients have got lots of barriers to reach to us. So we have to learn the skills of telemedicine, and this webinar will help us in doing that. And DigiShield and IMA, we together are conducting this webinar. I request Dr. Harsh Raichur, our beloved president, to welcome everybody.
Thank you, Guddu. Dr. Babladi, being very close, we of course, Dr. call each other by first name. So, sorry for the informality. Greetings and a very warm welcome from IMA Solapur. Good evening to everybody who is present, especially our panelists, Sanket, who founder and chairman of DigiShield, Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, and from Navi Mumbai, and Dr. Girish Kumtekar from Solapur. So, and all my friends who have logged in or on this was a program which has been brought to us by Maharashtra State IMA, and it was thanks to the coordination by Dr. Jyoti Chidgupkar that she helped us in coordinating with DigiShield to bring this event to you. Telemedicine is not something new to us. Telemedicine has been, we have been using it for a long time. Its need and a few additional elements have come into play because of COVID-19. Luckily, me being an ophthalmologist, we have been using this for a long time. We have the advantage that we can photograph the anterior segment, we can photograph the posterior segment, and we can put them on. And when I was in Arvinda Hospital just a few years ago, they have multiple centers all over India, and they used to have a grand round every Wednesday at 5 o'clock of difficult cases from everywhere. So that used to go on. They have a program where I can connect to, and I can show them, share my videos and cases of the patient, and they can give me a consultation from right there. One more thing that we have been doing very well in ophthalmology is we have diabetic retinopathy screening vans. They have a satellite link. The doctor sits in his consult while the technician goes to remote places, takes photographs of diabetic patients, uploads them. They are screened and checked by the physician, by the ophthalmologist in his chamber. Only those who require treatment are then sent to the major centers. So we have been doing this, and very useful for us is in retinopathy of prematurity, which I am using very regularly. We take photographs of premature infants, literally 32 weeks, 34 weeks, send them over to experts, because it is difficult to shift these babies who themselves are in that box, and getting them of an ICU is very difficult. So here we use this in a lot, and of course it must be in many other fields. What COVID has done is now it has brought in a different aspect, that is of teleconsultation, because it's difficult to meet, especially the comorbid patients. It is very difficult for them to come out and meet in person. So for these, we have teleconsultation. It is helping us out now, but I am old school, very much old school. And all said and done, I always believe that medicine is never only science. It's also an art. And in an art, that personal touch, coming face to face, talking with the patient, this is very important. And I think once the COVID dies down, this one-to-one art form has to come into play. But till then, and maybe for patients who cannot come out, teleconsultation will be a great thing. Again, thanking Maharashtra State, Jyoti Chidgupkar, DigiShield, Mr. Dipen Mehta, Chairman Mr. Sanket Barale, all of you for making this happen. Thank you, DigiShield, and thank you, Maharashtra State IMA, and welcoming you all to this webinar on teleconsultation. Over back to Dr. Babladi to conduct the proceedings. Thank you.
The first talk will be by Mr. Sanket Barale. He'll be giving an introduction to his product of teleconsultation, that is DigiShield. Mr. Sanket Barale is a health IT expert, innovator, and an entrepreneur. As the head of DigiShield, he has pioneered groundbreaking products, processes, and services, and has established partnerships with some of the largest health enterprises across the globe. Sanket, with his enterprising skills, has founded many innovative enterprises in the field of healthcare and technology that focus on developing and delivering solutions for global healthcare industry. He is also founder of FigMD, a Pune-based Google Ventures-backed company that manages healthcare data for 40% of US citizens. That's a good number. Over to Sanket.
Thank you so much, esteemed panelists and members of the IMA for this opportunity. As the introduction says, this is a culmination of a lot of hard work for the last 10 years. Just a brief point in terms of where we come from. I think it's relevant for what I'm going to share with you today. So over the last 10 years, through FigMD, which is my other company, we have associated ourselves with national and international medical associations. We work
loud so that we can hear you properly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so over the last 10 years, we have associated with national and international medical associations. So for example, one of our partners is the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and we do basically guideline and compliance and evaluation and analytics for almost 80% of the ophthalmologists in the United States. So we come to the table and with DigiShield with an extensive amount of experience in handling clinical data. I'm glad to have this opportunity to share with you what we are doing in India, based out of Pune. So when you look at the field of teleconsultation, telemedicine, there's a lot of teles, you can put together. The challenge typically that we saw in the market is that the solutions typically are not unified, they're not integrated, and they don't deal with patient treatment offline and online. Okay. So when you look at your clinical practice, you're not just doing things offline or online. It is online, offline. Sometimes with the same patient, you have to, see them in person, and then you get a phone call from home, things like that. So we felt it was important that a comprehensive system be developed that was very easy to use. It should not take any more than 5 minutes for you to download the app and get started with, which helped you treat and manage your patient both offline and online in multiple care settings. And that is exactly what we built DigiShield to do. The other important part of telemedicine or teleconsultation is that it has to be legally compliant, right? So the other distinguished panelists will talk about the requirements shortly. But the compliance should not be something that the doctor has to remember. The system must enforce that compliance, so that you don't run into problems with the changing landscape of the regulations. And the system also needs to be unified, meaning the argument right now, most doctors are using WhatsApp, FaceTime, and other modalities to do a video call. So I get asked, well, if I'm doing a video call, is that teleconsultation? So what's the difference between a teleconsultation and a video call, right? So unfortunately, there's a lot of sort of misconceptions that using WhatsApp and getting paid on Google GPay is basically you're doing teleconsultation. So the core premise here is that you need a comprehensive system that helps you manage your patient workflow end to end in a transparent, auditable, and discoverable manner, and which is also compliant with the rules and regulations of the land. Okay, and so when you add that as your overall need, then quickly WhatsApp and other systems start to fall short of that, right? So for example, your ability to verify the individual that you're consulting with is rather diminished on WhatsApp. Okay, your ability to have some sort of an audit trail in terms of what they told you, what was the input for the consultation is also very limited. The ability to collect payments, so it's out of sequence. So you have to consult, maybe you ask them to pay beforehand, and if you have a patient volume that is of reasonable load, You don't know who's paid, who's not paid. So there's a lot of challenges using traditional commercial systems to achieve a very highly specialized view that is teleconsultation, telemedicine, if you will. So we've attempted to solution all of that in building DigiShield, and we just to give you a quick history of DigiShield, we actually launched the product pre-COVID last year, got a tremendous amount of traction, and it was a commercial offering that doctors were paying for. So in a matter of a month, we had over 1,000 doctors sign up and were in queue for implementation. But post COVID, when we saw all of these things come together, we thought it was our responsibility to take a technology platform and help the doctor-patient gap be bridged. And this really came out of a personal story. So a very close friend of mine, just to let you know, a friend of a friend's, I should say, the close friend of mine, he had a friend, and it was a 45-year-old friend, and they were facing certain challenges, shoulder pain and various other challenges over a matter of heartburn and things like that over a matter of a week and a half. And because of COVID, they were just putting off consulting a doctor, and they're just not comfortable even over WhatsApp. Unfortunately, the situation happened that on a Friday, the appointment with the doctor finally was set on Monday, and on a Friday 4 a.m. that friend woke up, had a severe chest pain, had a massive heart attack, 45-year-old, and passed away. So that really kind of shook us up to the reality of this, that we're likely to face a situation where people are going to die of non-COVID related causes more than COVID related causes, because just there is so much lack of accessibility and interaction. So we kind of really took that to heart and said, okay, what can we as an IT company do out of that? And we decided at that point that we were going to, for IMA members, we're going to make this free, and we'll support you and everybody out there to the extent that we can to bridge this gap and divide, and in a future compatible manner, meaning that we just don't want you to use the system and consult online, and that's it. But also the same system needs to help you manage your prescriptions, issue electronic prescriptions, manage your patient workflow, screen for COVID risk factors for patients coming into your clinic, things like that. So an online, offline, comprehensive solutions with payments integrated, billing, and everything. That is what we have come up with an offer, and it also will tackle the rules and regulations in terms of identifying the patient, ensuring that the identity of who is being treated by you, having transparency in terms of issuing a prescription that is accepted by the FDA, and so on and so forth. So all of this we do as the IT folks and technologists, we take care of for you, and it's been put into a nice package of 3 to 5 minutes, no training involved, and you can get online. So that's what we have been championing, and we're proud to be associated with multiple IMA branches, and just informing, educating, and basically giving this away for free as our duty in this entire matrix. So there are two things that I can do based on what you want. We can play about a 2-minute quick video that will just give you a visual tour of what this experience looks like. And then I can field some Q&As either right now or after everybody's done talking. Okay. So Dipen, are you, can you put up the video and play it? And so while he brings it up, just an interesting statistics between May and April, 1 month between basically end of March and April, teleconsultations in the United States on an average increased by 700%. Okay, and this is a country where typically telemedicine is very well deployed already. There was a huge uptick in that, and I think to a large extent that helped the population engage with the doctors as though they did before COVID. I think it is our responsibility to push this infrastructure here in India as quickly as possible, so that we start to maintain that connect with the patient as much as it's possible through this very difficult time, and make the online and offline experience of that patient quite similar, so that we don't lose touch with them. So I think it's a very significant responsibility that all of us have to adopt these systems and digitize as quickly as possible in a manner that's very efficient.
Download the DigiShield app from the Play Store or App Store now. New users will go through a quick one-time registration process. After filling in some basic information, registration is complete and you can start using DigiShield. Logging into DigiShield is easy, safe and secure. Enter your registered mobile number. An OTP is sent to your mobile. Enter the OTP and you are logged in. No passwords to forget. Making a patient's appointment is easy. Just click on the calendar sign, enter the patient's name and mobile number. Select date and time of the appointment and that's it. A confirmation message will be sent to the patient and so will a reminder. A day before the appointment, your patient will be automatically contacted by the DigiShield agent. The Shield agent will collect the patient's symptoms, history of present illness and more. The agent will also collect any consents or indemnity that you want to collect from them. Based on the DigiShield interaction, you will be alerted to the patient corona carrier risk. It's easy to do a phone or a video consultation with the patient. DigiShield recommends that patients that have been flagged with a high or moderate corona carrier risk should be consulted via consultation first. Click on the phone icon or the video icon to do a safe and secure teleconsultation with the patient. In order to issue an e-prescription to a patient, tap on the pencil icon, tap on the camera icon to take a photo of the prescription and you're all set. The prescription is sent securely to the patient immediately. DigiShield is easy to use and you will be online within 5 minutes of downloading the app. Download DigiShield on the Android Play Store or Apple App Store today. Protect yourself, your patients, your community. Download DigiShield for free today.
So thanks for sitting through that. One or two quick points that I also make is the important thing to note here is that the system is low touch. Okay, meaning that there is nothing for the patient to download. It all works via SMS. It works via very low tech on the patient side, and that ensures a high degree of compliance. So we really try to make it very easy to use, no frills, online offline experience, and appreciate the opportunity to share this with you.
Thank you, Sanket.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Yeah. Next, I welcome Dr. Girish Kumtekar, for our own medico-legal expert in Solapur, who has been our backbone whenever we are in trouble. And he's a consulting obstetrician and gynecologist and infertility specialist, and he's a medico-legal consultant. He's in professional practice since last 33 years, and he's doing a fertility practice since 14 years, and medico-legal practice since 21 years. He owns a private 12-bedded maternity home in the city of Solapur. He is a pioneer and pioneer and partner in state-of-the-art IVF center, that is Navjeevan Fertility and IVF Center, Solapur. He is on medico-legal and ethical committee of FOXI, and he is chairman of medico-legal and ethical committee of AMOGS, and he is a past member of medico-legal committee of IMA branch. He has been as a faculty for medico-legal panels at multiple conferences, and he has been giving guidance and lectures to various members bodies of FOXI and other specialty associations since last 17 years. And he is a past president of Solapur IMA. I welcome Dr. Girish to deliver his lecture on medico-legal aspects of telemedicines. Thank you.
Thank you, Gudu, for the kind introduction. Introduction is always good because it is provided with the speaker himself, no doubt about it. Well, I will start sharing my screen, and I'm thankful to Web and this application and IMA for giving me this opportunity to share my views about this. Going ahead with the, let us go to the basic, and some of the parts will be again, there will be overlapping with Chiram because he has shared his presentation with me and some of the points are common. But let us go into quickly with the some overlapping part. What is telemedicine after all? It's the delivery of the healthcare services where distance is a critical factor by all healthcare professionals using information and communication technologies for the exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease and injuries, research and evaluation, and for the continuing education of healthcare providers, all in the interest of advancing the health of individuals and their communities. It has been ethically allowed, though it cannot be said legally allowed, by guidelines for teleconsultation by MCI on March 25th after the pandemic gripped the world. Now, how to start a telemedicine practice? There are certain guidelines by MCI, and an online program will be developed and made available by the Board of Governors in separation of Medical Council of India. All registered medical practitioners intending to provide online consultation need to complete a mandatory online course within 3 years of its notification. In the interim period, the principles mentioned in these guidelines need to be followed. Thereafter, the undergoing and qualifying such a course as prescribed will be essential prior to practice of telemedicine. So currently it's a very gray area, and the current scenario is like this. It is allowed for all RMPs, whether homeopath, Ayush or whatever it is. It will continue beyond the pandemic. Though these guidelines have been hurriedly published by MCI during the pandemic era, I hope that it will be continued beyond the pandemic. It is for the health education, counseling and prescription. It includes audio, video, text and data transfer. It includes all platforms like mobile, WhatsApp, Facebook and email. Doctors are allowed to charge fees. This is some nicety of telemedicine, because all these years we are giving free advice to the patients on telephone, and we really don't get any remuneration for that. And sometimes we feel that I have given such a big advice, but I'm not getting anything. It's okay, we do it for the benefit of the patient. But now these platforms are going to allow to charge fees, which again will be a digital payment. Doctor expected to follow own judgment to decide whether in-person consultation is needed. In emergency, only first aid advice and proper referral is required, and there are limitations of the teleconsultation and judging standard care of thereof. The key points in safe telemedicine practice are: the same ethical and professional standards should be practiced as per usual practice. Now, this is going to be difficult so far as telemedicine is considered, but only the practice and getting used to that is going to teach us how we can restrict ourselves in telemedicine and stick to our ethical and professional standards. Various forms of communication can be used as per the choice of both parties. This may be in the form of video, audio, and written communication, email, message, and SMS, text, etc. And first consultation should preferably be via video format to build rapport. The emergency consultation should be limited to directing the patient or caregiver to the appropriate site for physical care and advice about the first aid until reaching such a site. This is important point. We must know our limits, where to stop. Intervention by the doctor could be health education, counseling, or prescription of medication. So it is not only for consultation and prescription. This platform can be used for health education also, which is very important so far as our community is considered, because people from rural areas or those who remote areas, some health education is definitely needed so far as a particular disease or a pandemic or epidemic or some abnormality is considered. Prescription should be provided in a standard form. This is required of the MCI, that it should be given in a format provided with them. Medications are grouped as per the mode of consultation, feasibility and safety of telemedicine. List O includes drugs which are available over the counter, such as paracetamol, oral rehydration solutions, etc. They may be advised by any mode of consultation. List A includes drugs that can be prescribed only after video consultation, such as eye drops for conjunctivitis. List B comprises of drugs that are prescribed for the same condition as add-on that is ondansetron for severe nausea and pregnancy, which is not relieved by the first line agents like doxylamine. So you can see the limitation of prescription. There are again Z's drugs and X drugs, classified drugs, which just cannot be prescribed, and there has to be a written signed prescription for procuring the drugs, as the pharmacists are also controlled by that act of prescription. At present, doctors do not need any special training to do telemedicine. In the future, the Board of Governors of the National Medical Council will have a telemedicine program. Doctors will be required to complete a set of repetition. Documentation and maintenance of records may be in physical or electronic form. Electronic record keeping is now accepted as judicially also acceptable record, provided there are certain criteria that are followed, but electronic records are admitted to the courts even as evidence now. Telemedicine may be chargeable service. Now, systematic reviews were taken for this. I'm not going through the niceties of the telemedicine pros and cons, because Shriram will be covering most of them. I'm going to the systematic reviews. What was the people are always behind some statistics. And these are the systematic reviews screened 3,926 published articles, and the final review included 47 articles. The scope of the review included low risk and high risk obstetrics, family planning, and general gynecology. Being a gynecologist, I definitely focus more on the gynecological consultation. And as you know, as Harish told, ophthalmic consultations are easy and they're practicing it for a long time. For us gynecologists and obstetricians, it's very difficult, but still it can be used to a certain extent. The review suggests some benefit with telehealth intervention, particularly text messaging and remote monitoring. Telehealth interventions were associated with improvements in obstetric outcomes. This is something important. Parental smoking cessation, breastfeeding, and scheduled optimization of high-risk obstetrics. This is again important. We can, from report, we can identify, isolate, and treat high-risk cases accordingly. Telehealth provision of medication-induced abortion services had similar clinical outcome compared with in-person care and increased access to early abortion. It suggests that telehealth provides comparable health outcomes when compared with traditional methods of healthcare delivery without compromising the patient-physician relationship, and it also has been shown to enhance patient satisfaction and improve patient engagement. Very important so far as the COVID era is considered. Investigators compared perinatal outcomes in 117 women opting for a regimen of 9 in-person prenatal visits and 5 virtual prenatal visits to 941 women receiving up to 12 in-person prenatal visits. There were no significant differences in rates of cesarean birth, preterm birth, neonatal intensive care admissions, or birth weight, despite a higher rate of preeclampsia in the virtual visit cohort. So there is some drawback. High preeclampsia cases were not really identified early. Patient satisfaction was significantly higher among women having virtual visits, although the absolute differences between in-person and virtual visits were so small as to be questionable of questionable clinical significance. Now, coming to my second part of the lecture, this is regarding a small brief overview of what is legality of telemedicine in current context, so far as the Medical Council of India is allowed. I will come to the last part of how much allowance is given and how much directives are going to be useful in the last few slides. But before that, the main topic was consent in this teleconsultation. Now, consent, if you go by legal definition, when 2 or more persons agree upon the same thing in the same sense, they are said to consent. Now, who can give consent? Indian Penal Code says, sections 88 and 90 say, any person who is conscious, mentally sound, and about 12 years of age. Now, friends, this is a big fallacy and a contradiction in our legal system. Now, Indian Penal Code allows 12 years, but the Indian Contract Act has section 13 and 11. Only persons who are of and above 18 years of age are competent to enter into a contract. This dispute has not been settled as yet, and there are a lot of conflicts in between, but some judicial judgments have come in favor that 18 years is the only and real age of consent, as it is the age of competency. Since doctor-patient relationship amounts to entering into a contract, it is advisable that a valid consent should be obtained, especially written consent. Today, I am not going into the details of legal niceties and ramifications of consent, because it's a big topic by itself, consuming nearly a day if you take it in a real serious sense. But I will try to be very brief about the consent. What about consent in teleconsultation? Consent is implied when the patient initiates a consultation with the doctor. I'll explain. There are 4 types of consent in a legal sense: implied consent, informed consent, tacit consent, and proxy consent. Now, implied consent is when the patient comes to you and starts talking to you, and when you subject the patient to examination, you do it with implied consent, assuming that when the patient has come to you, patient has already agreed to get examined by you, and patient is ready to pay for that. That means a contract is established under implied consent, which is we don't have to talk the consent, but it is assumed that the patient has agreed to it. So it is implied. But informed consent is a detailed topic. You have to go into very details of the thing you are going to do with the patient. Informed consents are mainly associated with invasive procedures, and are very, very important, absolutely important, so far as any procedure is to be carried out over the patient. Tacit consent means just okay, some written form or some communication is conveyed, which can be documented with the patient, and the proxy consent is given by somebody else on behalf of the patient. I'm not going into the details of nicety of each and every consent, but for today's topic, when a patient initiates a consultation with the doctor, so one is using the telecommunication app, teleconsultation app, and he taps you. He wants to consult you through that teleconsultation app. He has initiated the communication. So the consent is implied. You just go ahead, no written consent is required. On the contrary, if you are inviting a patient to join your group, your old patient, and you invite them on the application, this is a communication initiated by you. And in this case, or it is if it is a request of the patient's caregiver, for example, explicit consent should be taken. Suppose a patient's caregiver is requesting you, and you are initiating consultation with the patient on the request of a caregiver. Then a written or an explicit consent must be taken. This consent can be taken by recording the patient by oral consent on telephonic talk, or an email from the patient, or the SMS or text on various applications from the patient or caregiver, and a digital signature is valid, but very few have it ready at hand. In conclusion, teleconsultation is still in infantile stage. As more and more applications are coming into the market, they are improvising themselves, they are bringing down the shortcomings, they are including many platforms into it, and that is there. Definite improvisation is there. And as you see many and more applications, you find that they are really user-friendly. Not only user-friendly, they are patient-friendly, and maybe they are going to change the complexion of patient-doctor relation so far as preliminary consultations, reconsultations, chronic disability consultations are considered. They are going to be helpful. It cannot replace direct face-to-face consultation. No way, it cannot 100% replace, because some clinical examination, some clinical findings are needed to be elicited. And the problem is sometimes the patient may mask or camouflage or tell lies to you that these symptoms, when you ask a positive or leading questions to them, these questions may get camouflaged and you may miss the diagnosis because of poor response from the patient. Discretion is a must before initiating teleconsultation. You have to be very scrupulous. As you know many patients who are their patients with you. You can find out the troubleshooters. You can find out the patients who are getting nuisance. You will have to be very discretionary with them, how to consult with them, because just for their convenience, you go overboard and do something, and then they are ready to jump on the wagon and to sue you, because it was not a prerogative to go overboard and prescribe something which cannot be prescribed online. Record keeping is still a must, either electronic or documented. There is no need to emphasize the record keeping so far as medico-legal problems are considered, because it is always a saying in the medico-legal concept that no records, no defense, inadequate records, poor defense, and good records, good defense. It's a chargeable service. That is a consolation. Now, I have heard from many people, many consultants who are practicing now teleconsultation, that some of the patients are not really ready to pay for teleconsultation. But certain applications, the prescription cannot be released unless the patient pays. Initially, that might hurt the patient. Patient may feel hurt. अरे डॉक्टर को इतना देने को क्या जाता है? मैं तो ऐसे ही बता रहा हूँ कहाँ मैं जा रहा हूँ, कहाँ एग्जामिनेशन किया, एक प्रेस्क्रिप्शन मुफ्त में देने में क्या जाता है? But patients have to understand our intellectual property. Now, writing a prescription, there is a utilization of intellectual property, and the patients have to pay for that. And this is a era where we doctors are lacking because we don't make patients realize that we are using intellectual property. I'll give you a small example. When a software developer charges some few dollars for every line, because the line needs some intellectual power. It is intellectual. He has to think, he has to put in a line, and then that line works. So he charges for that. Can't we doctors think that writing a line of prescription is an outcome of intellectual property? So we have to preserve it. So we doctors have to say no to free consultation, no to free prescriptions, and these applications are going to act like receptionist in our consulting room, where she doesn't allow entry without paying the consulting fees. So that is going to be an advantage, and some interaction with the patient will be lost, which we probably will be beneficial to the consultants. Only various directives and judgments passed by the courts in future shall decide the real utility of telemedicine. I will clear this point and I'll end my lecture and end my presentation. Every area, every new coming thing cannot be put in black and white. Medical science still has enormous gray areas which cannot be brought into black and white. Whatever the statistics, whatever the research, whatever the analysis you do, they remain gray area. Similarly, in legal system, in judiciary, there are always gray areas. Law is already dissected in the courts of law. Law is only a bare law is only a directive, and it is up to the legal luminaries and the judiciary to interpret which is in the benefit of the administration, benefit of the government, or benefit of the aggrieved party, whether whether the grievances are true, and the law is dissected, and certain judgments are given by the courts, which act as a precedence and help in further resolving the grievances in future. A similar thing is going to happen when we are going to use this new modality of medical practice. So certain things may go to the court immediately, and the court might decide that no, this is wrong. The patient's contention is wrong. Then the doctor stand to win. But if something is not taken in good spirit by the judiciary or by the patients, or sometimes the doctor has gone overboard, and there appears to be some negligence or deficiency in service, and the court may think otherwise, may penalize the doctor, and that may be a precedence in future judgments when there will be a balance between grievances of the patient and grievances of the doctor. We don't know where it ends. Just to brief you in a small things, in our hierarchy of our judiciary, if the Supreme Court says something which is not in the law, it becomes a law until it is changed or taken back by the Parliament. Parliament remains supreme, there's no question about it. But so far as the Parliament doesn't abrogate it or change it or modify it, what Supreme Court gives directive becomes a law until Parliament intervenes. What Supreme Court says is binding on the high courts. What High Court says is not binding on the Supreme Court, but what Supreme Court says is binding on the High Courts. What High Courts say is binding on the district courts. District courts rulings can be easily overturned and defaced by the High Court, but High Court rulings are binding on the district courts. Similarly, the hierarchy goes down, and similar cases in National Consumer Forum also. But National Consumer Forum has really limited powers. They really don't have a judicial saying. They have only directive saying, and that has to be settled ultimately by the Supreme Court. But that's what the judiciary works, and it consumes decades of years, or maybe a couple or more of years in getting the justice for either the doctors or the patients. Dear friend, this was in brief. What is going to be a future so far as legality of teleconsultation is considered? I hope this. I always end my lecture by saying that when I give a lecture on the medical legal aspect of something, it always creates more questions in the minds of the listeners rather than getting answers. But that's the way it is, because of the gray areas and the various precedents and various ways of thinking so far as the legality and its dissection is considered. I hope this gives a clear idea of how we are going to land up in future in the telemedicine. Thank again IMA and the application developers for giving this opportunity to present this great idea of mine about e-consultation. Thank you very much.
As you told, there are lots of gray areas in the legal matters, but I know that you are always there on a single call to solve all our confusions as well as doubts. And I've seen n number of times you have been there in wherever the problem is there in Solapur to help your colleagues and IMA members. And thank you.
It's my passion. It's my passion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next time, Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, who is from our Turzapur, and I feel proud that he's from our area and he's settled in Navi Mumbai and he's practicing there since last so many years.
Your voice is not audible.
Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, he's a physician and he did his undergraduation and post-graduation in Mirrors in 1982 and he's practicing since last 37 years. He's a faculty in GMC Mirrors and D.Y. Patil Medical College in Nerar. He's a member of Indian College of Physicians and he has been an organizing secretary of MAPCON in 2002 and 2019 and EPICON in 2007 at Goa. He's a pioneer in medical IT and smartphone technology. And he's a consulting primary physician since 1993 in Khopoli and Raigad. And he's a faculty, and his interests are in artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, data mining, retrieval, EHR and EMR, futuristic medicine, remote monitoring and wearable techs, predictive data and analysis, data and management. I hand over the dais to Dr. S.V. Kulkarni and I request him to share his slides.
Thank you. Thank you, Guddu. Thank you, Harish. Something wonderful, batting on the home ground. I really appreciate your enthusiasm in organizing a webinar which is on a real practical note of and it is the requirement of the time. I'm just going to give you briefly practical considerations of telemedicine. This is, I really thank Guddu for all the introduction, and I'm very proud that I am from Dayanand College 70 to 73. Almost 40 of my classmates are practicing in Solapur. And I decided to shift my focus on medical IT and smartphone technology almost 10 to 11 years back. And that's really giving me good time all over the country and the world. So telemedicine is the consultation of the new normal. I'm going to focus only on 4 points. The first is e-health and telemedicine. What are the advantages, benefits? What are the challenges? And what are the best practices? With one very practical example, which I just finished the consultation attending the webinar at 9 o'clock. People consider that this is not a fact that nothing comes out of the computer and examines the patient. It is a method of evaluating your health. And what WHO reports is a cost-effective and secure, most important is secure use of information and communication technology to support of health and health-related fields. What are the fields? Healthcare services, surveillance, very important in COVID times. You open that app and that app is running like a meter. Literature retrieval, education, knowledge and research. and e-health reinforces fundamental human rights by improving equality, solidarity, quality of life, and definitely the quality of care. And this is the delivery of healthcare services where distance availability is a critical factor. Not only distance, availability of expertise, and as far as the health professionals are concerned. And this uses IEC for the exchange of valid information for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention of disease and injuries. Example, a person somewhere on Solapur Latur road gets a chest pain. His ECG is sent to a cardiologist in Solapur. He confirms it is a STEMI, and a thrombolytic or at least aspirin and 80 milligrams of atorvastatin is given to the person within 5 minutes. It helps in research and evaluation and continuing education of healthcare workers at odd times, at odd places, and at odd hours. Aim of advancing the health of individuals and the community, that is the basic motive of telemedicine. So this involves everybody of us, the people, the patient, the technology, the smartphone. In future, it may happen with the help of something called as a virtual reality and robotics and AI. We may be in a position to do surgery in a telemedicine way. It will be converted into telesurgery. One word about virtual reality. It is also called as augmented reality. Then it is called as assisted reality. Very useful in branches like physiotherapy and rehabilitation. Now, what are the advantages? It delivers timely care, minimizes exposure to protect physicians, healthcare workers, and patients. It avoids overloading of healthcare capacity. This is something really very important in today's COVID days. Maximize the efficiency of the efficacy and efficiency of the healthcare delivery at a low cost. Lessens the transmission of virus, low absenteeism. This is very important because the timely care and minimizing exposure of the patient. Suppose if I got a patient of COVID positive and I need to refer, I just open the site of Navi Mumbai and find out which hospital nearby is having maximum number of bed availability with oxygen, without oxygen, ICU. That reduces the commuting time of my patients. It improves quality, solidarity in the doctor's group, quality of life and quality of care. In short, it is going to help us the global healthcare. It can cut down cost of that pay out of their pocket. Unfortunately, 98% of our Indian population is out of pocket. They become bankrupt after a hospitalization. It cuts down travel. The rainy season of Navi Mumbai is really grueling, and even if you want to travel for a distance of 2 to 5 kilometers, it may take sometimes hours. It humanizes the COVID experience, allowing patients to talk to the family, to the caregiver with the video conference. All the things are not green on the side. There are certain challenges too. We have to see the lack of technological infrastructure and skills. I appreciate the steps taken by Sanket and DigiShield by providing sort of a almost free software for the healthcare. Poor coverage in certain area of our territory, maybe because of the signal and the bandwidth. The diverse information systems available with a large number of internal tailor-made applications, not providing for the possibility of interconnection. So Sanket, what you are supposed to do is, this is the interconnection and transferability of the software, which is, and the patient data, very important. There is a complex use of implemented solutions. I know certain softwares which take sometimes 1 hour to download and 3 hours to train. People are always worried about their data security, confidentiality, and protection. They don't want their COVID state to be displayed. We have got newspapers who display it with names. Security, they don't want advertisements. They don't want any calls from the banks, whether you want loan or not, by disclosing their personal information and phone numbers. So what are the human factors? Human factor, one of the biggest is the lack of emotional bond. Doctor, तुम्ही आम्हाला तपासलंच नाही, हातच लावलेला नाहीये. And here is a wonderful cartoon. इथे हा माणूस बघा गाडी घेऊन जातोय, त्याला चौकोनी चाक आहे. हा त्याला गोल चाक देतोय. Actually wheel is one of the biggest invention after fire and cloth, but he is telling no thanks, we are too busy to wake up the society of this. The level of individual competency in the information field and or the necessary skills to perform confidently existing opinions about the telemedicine and skepticism हे मला जमणार नाही. मी आता 65 वर्षाचा म्हातारा फिजिशियन झालो, मला टेलिमेडिसिन कशाला अक्कल शिकवतो. दॅट इज द नॉर्मल ॲटिट्यूड ऑफ पीपल. पण तुम्हाला कधी व्हॉट्सअप ट्रेनिंग स्कूल कधी बघितलंय का? तुम्हाला कोणी व्हॉट्सअप शिकवलंय का? पण तरी पण वापरताय ना. देन दे सेम वे स्टार्ट युजिंग टेलिमेडिसिन. The workload required to implement this type of program in the existing setting, not that every doctor they can definitely afford a smartphone, his staff also can afford a smartphone. And as usual, there is a resistance to change the routine from one in which professionals feel safe and comfortable for a new and unfamiliar one, which entails a certain level of initial uncertainty. आता याच्यात जो सेफ्टीचा एक जो प्रॉब्लेम आहे, फील सेफ अँड ककून इन देअर ओन वे. एक पेन घेतलं, कागदावर प्रिस्क्रिप्शन लिहिलं, ही इज कम्फर्टेबल. बट ऍट द सेम टाइम he should understand that he is preventing one biggest error, that is in the prescription formats and in the drug interactions. So even though there are challenges, there are a lot of benefits out of those challenges. Like our previous speakers told, there's a question mark. Do the people trust telemedicine? Almost 60% are uncomfortable. 75% say that no, we want to go to doctor only. Only 35% will choose a virtual appointment. When 52% they will say that it is low cost and convenient for scheduling. Almost 70% are likely to have again to go to the same doctor and physical evaluation. But when we tell them that sir, now it is not possible because of COVID, they are happy with telemedicine. These are the factors not only from our country, but these are the situation everywhere in the world, including Mexico and USA and some part of UK. We had recently one American College of Physiology conference, and this was discussed. The human nature is same everywhere. Then there is a challenge on the economic environment. What are the implementation costs? Initial funding and project sustainability. Not included in the portfolio of administration or reimbursement. Economic framework, no reimbursement. And lack of scientific evidence regarding the clinical and economic benefits, as the time only going to change us, tell us, and if Corona is going to be our greatest teacher. The last part is what are the best practices. Something very simple, follow principles of medical ethics, humanity, manuskimet consultation kara, protect patient privacy and confidentiality, confirm identity both patients and physicians. बोलताना सांगायचं मी डॉक्टर एस.यू. कुलकर्णी बोलतोय, तुम्ही मला तुमच्याशी कन्सल्टेशन करायचंय, आपलं नाव हरीश रायचूर का, त्यांनी हो म्हणून सांगितलं, मग कन्सल्टेशन पुढे. कन्फर्म रिझन्स ऑफ रिमोट कन्सल्टेशन इज अप्रोप्रिएट फॉर द क्लिनिकल सेटिंग. Undertake assessment of patient symptoms and virtual signs. And I'm really very happy when DigiShield told us that they can take this particular part. It is going to save almost our 20% of the time. Then summarizing the consultation and make sure that patient understood management plan. I will explain you with the case at the end. Then you have to make appropriate follow-up arrangements, data protection, including images and the recording of the consultation. So you should have proper lighting. The light which I am showing you right now, it is in front of my face, but it really makes the face very clear. Proper network, clothing that allows visibility and quiet place to speak. Now, one word about this network, that if you have got Wi-Fi and if there are too many people who are sharing the screen or the network, then you have to ask to not to share too many equipments. Other thing is, if the audio is clear, not clear, and if it is showing you cut or some different noises, then you have to stop the video, because people are interested in what you are talking and what you are showing, rather than looking at the face of the presenter, which is going to be there for the next 20 minutes. So proper lighting, proper network, appropriate clothing, and quiet place to speak. You have to dress professionally. You have to make eye-to-eye contacts. You cannot just look out of the window and talk to the patient. You have to look at the patient. You have to take your time. Sometimes patients, they don't tell you the symptoms at your first go. You have to really dig the symptoms. And secondly, you have to speak a bit slowly. Don't speak fast as if you are in the Deccan Queen from Mumbai to Pune. You have to speak clearly so that patient understand and the doctor also understand what the patient has spoken. So in remote health services, you can have drug use review of the patient's medication history is very important because there are a lot of people who are taking n number of medicines. And in this era of polypharmacy, I will suggest everybody of you to download either Medscape or any drug interaction checker and check out the drug interactions of all the patients, what they are doing. I have lost a patient who was on domperidone, who was on azithromycin, who was hydroxychloroquine, and who was on amiodarone. All 4 drugs caused prolonged QT interval, and the patient died of torsion dispointis. Health education is very important. You are not explored the medium of YouTube. You must use YouTube and PDF handouts. And the health therapy management, it is not only the prescription, but the counseling also helps for the patient. So friends, the purpose is to provide clinical support intended to overcome geographical barriers connecting users who are not in the same physical location, and it uses different kind of technology according to the affordability. Even if you have got some 1,000 rupees or 1,500 rupees phone also, where DigiShield can send a link that will be an electronic prescription for the patient who can show it to the medical stores, and without avoiding the ghastly doctor's handwriting errors, he can get the right medicines. So I got last 3 take-home messages. Patients and physicians need a good network support and know how to use the platform. The platform should be secure. The 4 components: informed consent, Girish explained it fantastically. Check your legislation. Privacy risk, consultation must be private and confidential. Agreed management and follow-up of the plan. You cannot tell the patient that you have to go for a HRCT thorax. Patient says, I don't have money, I can go only for X-ray. So it is an agreed management that if you develop more dyspnea, if you develop more cough, and if your X-ray is normal, you are going for a HRCT, and that you can document while talking to the patient, and you can write on the piece of paper. Keep it simple. Download the PDF guides for patients. Speak clearly and speak very slowly so that both the parties understand the implication. COVID pandemic has altered how medical practitioners provide care to the patients. Need to continue providing diagnosis, treatment, monitoring, and follow-ups, and digital tools, technologies, wearables to provide virtual care with the help of smartphone or video consultations is going to be the new norm. So the new normal of safe medical practice, you have to use telemedicine, you have to use video consultation. The next 3 slides is what I do in my daily life. This you can take it from Dr. Harish, take the printout and put into your clinic. So I have to tell my patient Satya Pe Satta rules, simple tips for making effective video consultation. SMS or call the doctor 10 minutes or 30 minutes before starting the video. For which problem you want to consult, be very clear, don't tell too many symptoms. Send your previous prescription photograph to be very clear, properly oriented vertically with all margins trimmed and a clear picture. Please tell about a problem which you are facing in order of severity, which is bothering you most, and new one. Do mention the other diseases like you have got comorbid conditions like blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, asthma, or anything for which you are taking treatment. Do you have any support in the family or any family history of similar complaint? And the last question which I ask is, do you have a doctor or a medical student or a medical person in your family? That reduces your job to half. Now there are certain important numbers to save and tips to follow. People are more worried about only corona infection, but there are other problems which can go unnoticed and ignored. AMI, CVS. Use the earphone so that your mobile remains free to show any part of your body like throat, eyes, neck, or any skin lesion. An experienced senior doctor can diagnose to almost 85 to 95% of conditions which are problematic in today's age by video. We must thank our great teachers in clinical medicine, right from Dr. Raite and to my teacher, Dr. Sortul, who has taught us good clinical medicine. better to avoid travel exposure or to coronavirus. Waiting in the clinic with other patients, telemedicine is the right answer, and you give your numbers in a very proper way, paste it on the wall or on the notice board of your clinic. Now the last patient-friendly features, you get prescription on WhatsApp or email, you can get printed one at clinic. A copy can be sent to your friendly chemist for drugs. By the time you go there, your medicines are ready. Then for the lab, for investigation, radiology, for X-ray, sonography, CT, you have to be just in time for that site. You can practice all vaccinations, including adults. All the doctors who are attending this, I request them to take a flu vaccine every year and pneumonia vaccines 2 at the interval of 1 year, and typhoid vaccine once in life. MMR vaccine, again assuming some different role. You have to offer basic health parameter evaluation by the medical staff like TPRBP, SpO2, ECG, blood sugar, HbA1c by point of care method, continuous glucose monitoring, 24-hour BP monitoring. These are the things which I offer in my clinic, and we collect the lab. So this is the last slide of my talk today. We had a patient with hyponatremia she was a walking patient, but 8th August 120 sodium, 9th August 111, 11th August, today it came to 128. But these 4 days were nightmare for the family. And if you see, this is a journal of International Federation of Clinical Chemistry and Laboratory Medicine. It says that anything less than 110 is incompatible with life. This lady was 76 years old, was deaf and dumb. We made a video consultation, and what I confirmed that she can walk, sit and stand without support. Her appetite is normal. She is watching television. What only thing which I did, that took her little history, and she was doing laxative abuse. And to your surprise, with medicine in home only, with soda bicarb and resodium, her sugar has, her sodium has come down to 128, and she has LNRT. The figure which was supposed to be the incompatible of life, only with the help of clinical medicine, we can manage the patient in home and definitely help the patient for getting a proper outcome in this monsoon era infested with COVID, malaria and dengue. This is the official publication of JIFCC. If you are interested in further reading, these are the readings, these are the articles which I am sharing for all of you. I'm very happy that I made so many new friends in this presentation, and I've been interacting with you, but I'm ready to take your questions for any of your comments. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Questions are open.
Hiten, Dipen, are there any questions?
I'll answer.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Harish wants to ask a question.
Dr. S.V. Kulkarni?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you go about vitals, checking vitals and everything in patient for the first consultation? That seems to be an important.
No. One thing is certain, that during any teleconsultation, either you have to send your assistants or you have to train the healthcare, the patient's relative, to use SpO2, pulse and electronic BP apparatus and thermometer to find out the things. And as I suggested, you definitely want to interact with somebody who is a medical caregiver. You cannot touch the patient. That is absolutely clear. Suppose if I want to, I had a patient with abscess. I asked them that this is hard, this is firm and this is soft. How does the swelling look like? And there are very good videos on virtual consultation and virtual examination by American College of Physicians and American Medical Association. They are very simple 2-3 points video. You know, it tells you how to see for anemia, how to see for teeth, how to see for thyroid, how to check for the neck glands. It tells you how to check whether there are any lymph nodes. It's very simple. You have to explore it. Teleconsultation, different examination of it. But we cannot go personally and check the things. And whenever such type of things is required, this is the biggest limitation of telemedicine. So you must know the Lakshman Resha between a virtual consultation, in live consultation, and a teleconsultation. And I won't say that it is a really panacea or boon to everybody, but with the practice, with the physician's practice, I definitely manage 75 to 85% of my patients on teleconsultation, and they are comfortable. We have to keep our records. The biggest problem, we Indians are fantastic doctors. We are too good clinicians, but our biggest bimari is we don't keep any medical records. Nobody keeps proper medical record. That's why you don't publish, you don't do research, and that's the real irony of it. One more point I want to suggest to you, that whenever you are evaluating patient, confirm the identity by something, one identification factor, like an Aadhaar card or a PAN number or anything, and get the address in detail. Why the detail addressing is important? Because I have got almost 2,500 diabetic patients, and you must have seen Navi Mumbai. Navi Mumbai is like it is a box-like structure. Kharghar sector so and so, building street tower, 100 flats. So if I have got a corona positive patient who stays in sector street tower of sector 20, I can sort my patients, and I can give them information that you have to be more careful, especially in public places or the frequently contactable places like the lift buttons, the staircases. So it becomes an indirect sort of your social service by which you can help the other people even without examining or knowing. Thank you.
One more thing that I wanted was you and Girish also is the privacy factor, and how do we go about that? So because this is something which is on screen, it's there for anybody around to see, check.
Girish, मला पाणी पिऊ दे.
Yeah.
One more question and then
I think पाणी दे ना. बोल.
Can you hear me?
बोल गिरीशला सांग.
Privacy has to be maintained. There's no question about it. Now, when you are in your consultation with your private space and you don't allow others to see what is happening, now it's up to the patients to retain their privacy if they want to really get private treatment.
Exactly.
So, is considered. I think data remains private. Data theft and data publication is not possible in these applications because it's totally under your control, and only you can drive it. Other patients cannot see the data of the other patients, the rest of the patients, and so the patient's privacy is maintained with you. But so far as both sides is considered, you yourself are responsible for privacy, and patient, he, her, or herself is responsible for privacy.
Sanket, can you add something to that end-to-end encrypted?
Encryption.
Because that is one word which is there, no? And is your app or is a play protected app?
Yes, sir.
Is your app a play protected app?
Yeah,
Google
so
Play protected.
Basically, when it comes to data security and privacy, the regulatory framework in India is evolving. So the benefit that we have is that we built systems for the last decade that are HIPAA, HITECH, and GDPR compliant. So the same security protections and warranties and everything that are built into our US and EU based systems are introduced here in our application. So absolutely end-to-end encryption is there. The data is encrypted at rest, in transit, in all aspects of the transaction. The data is inherently sort of inaccessible to us as a system and service provider also. There is a very robust agreement that we enter into with the doctor, which clearly delineate data use, privacy, ownership, and everything. Bottom line is your data and it's the patient's data, and us as a system operator do not do anything with it except to provide a service to you. So it's very important to have the right legal frameworks, the documentation, the agreements, and the roles and responsibilities, and the technical framework, in place to ensure security and privacy of the data, which is all encapsulated in what we are offering to you.
Sanket, regarding identification of the patient, so sometimes the patient with the same names, and is the mobile number the criteria?
No, it cannot be. Mobile number can be changed n number of times. So what we have to decide some standard practice. All over the country, people take first name as their advice at the first thing. I do in a reverse way. I first take the surname, then the first name, and then the father's or husband name. I always mention date of birth. So there cannot be 10 Sriram Vasant Kulkarnis who are born on 9th of October 1955. There may be one or two, but one may be staying in Tuljapur, another may be staying in Mumbai, third may be staying in Boston. So these are the ways in which, see, you have to have some stratification criteria of even that data also. And you have to tell very clearly, because if you have seen the new generation of doctors, they just say, no, you just say Dr. Sanket and I will be reached. You have to give more specification so as to identify you personally. Sanket, I got one more person in our audience. His name is Dr. Rajendra Khatawkar. He is also a medical legal expert. So is it possible for you to unmute Rajendra Khatawkar and ask his opinion also? Because he has been doing really good work in our part of Navi Mumbai. Is it possible, admin?
Yeah, he is. He can unmute himself now.
Dr. Khatawkar.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
I would like to know the question again.
See, there are two questions. Number one is privacy confidentiality, and second is how we should go by the names. What are the criteria by which you can confirm the identity of the patient, and whose onus is to keep the confidentiality of the record and the consultation?
Privacy is of crux. It has to be maintained and you can be sued. So at any cost you have to maintain. And I think the latest guidelines by Board of Governors, which have been published on 25th of March 2020, it also highlights about that. Number two, the identity of the patient, very easy, as you have said previously, PAN number, Aadhaar number, which are very easily. At the same time, if the patient is, we are seeing the patient by video, you can take a snap of him. You come to know to whom we are talking to. And of course, if you are seeing any skin conditions, it will help if any dermatologist is doing teleconsultation. It will be help to have the records also. If some dentist is doing, it will have his preservation of the proper records. Now, before COVID, there were many softwares, and with the help of which the many doctors used to preserve digital records. So only the digital records, only the gateway is different. As DigiShield is one of that. So only the gateway is different. The rest of the things remain the same.
Thank you, Rajendra. Harish, actually, if you really want to have the real identity of the patient, it is only the iris pattern. It is from your department only, which will prove you can have an iris.
We can have that also, because nowadays we have registration on thumb, even on your consultation. Yes. That can be done.
My question to all of you, like how electronic health record, and is there any connectivity with the Aadhaar card? So if supposedly a person visits to any health clinic anywhere in India, I get access if he comes out.
Actually, this is the thing for which I am fighting for last 11 years with all the organizations. API, Indian College of Physicians, RSSDI, we have to have a uniform healthcare record system all over the country. And it is not a rocket science. It can be only a 20, 30, 40, 50 points. And what I suggest, Dr. Mole, that you should write to RSSDI or API to tell them that why their organizations like this, they are not doing it. Because see, there is no interconnectivity with IMA. If there are IMA officials in this group, IMA should take forward this, because IMA is the parent organization of everything. IMA should stress upon having a uniform health record. So any patient goes anywhere, he knows the health record as well as gets the proper treatment. Your Dr. Mure's point is absolutely right, and it has to be taken care. And we should be, now the ICM are doing everything for COVID. If they can do it for COVID, they can do it for diabetes, they can do it for hypertension, they can do it for malaria. That will help us.
Government's initiative of new health card is in the same direction, I suppose.
Yes.
EHR is compulsory in their records. In 2016, they had passed a GR, and that is what they are trying to make it. So Aadhaar card, Aadhaar linked health card should have been the ideal ones. So supposedly, a person comes down to my clinic and he visits again to Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, he should not go for the detailing, or he might hide certain, maybe Cox, pulmonary Cox, maybe COVID infection. So that's what I mean. Should have helped. I mean, this time actually COVID times. If supposedly I am suspecting a person who is having COVID and he visits to another clinic, he should have been caught over there, and he goes. Maybe he should be compulsory screened. That's it.
That's a perfect idea. What you can do is you can start doing it within a small group of your people, and you can just show an example how the things can. I remember there was one family who had used to get dyskinesia with getting Stemetil and Peridone, and somehow or the other it was written on a small card that extrapyramidal the things dyskinesia develop after injection Peridone. The patient was brought almost in a not talkable condition, in a twisted pattern. What he was trying to show that in his pocket there is a card, you look at it, and you will not believe that card clearly stated that he was having dyskinesia. 2 cc injection of Phenargan made the patient all right within 2 minutes. And people were really afraid, because if you have seen clinically how does a dyskinesia looks like, it is horrible. It is next to a condition just before hanging, and the patient became all right. So that drug interactions can be added. You can keep the proper research record, and you please start with your place. And I just want to ask Sanket that do you have a recording facility for all the research work on clinical medicine? Is Sanket there? Sanket or?
एकदा परत प्रश्न विचार. I'm sorry, थोडं कट होतं.
See, now I have got 10,000 patients. Correct. I want to know how many are diabetics, how many are hypertensive, how many are COVID.
Correct.
So does it help? Your software helps to arrange that data according to it.
Yes, sir. So what we do in the software is, as you saw in the video, it is as easy as taking a photo of your prescription. So we have actually incorporated AI-based handwriting analytics in there. So we will digitize the prescription, pick up the vitals, the diagnosis, the medication off of that, and we make that prescription searchable. So you as a clinician have access to that searchable record. Across your entire patient population. You can integrate that into any sort of analytics, Power BI, Excel, whatever it is. That's also available.
I have a question to Sanket.
Yes.
Does the patient need to download the app, or he can just how does the system work like?
Yeah, so we've intentionally made it to be very low tech on the patient side. So the patient can engage with you as long as they have a geo feature phone or a smartphone or anything, and it doesn't require any apps to be downloaded. It's all initiated via SMS. So a teleconsult is also initiated via an SMS message, and a prescription is also shared via SMS that links to a web browser. So it's basically all browser based. So no specific application needs to be downloaded by the patient.
संकेत, तू पैसे चार्ज करत नाहीस, मग तुझी कंपनी कशी चालते?
US मध्ये खूप पैसे कमवतो आम्ही.
Investors आहेत का तुला भरपूर? Harish and Girish, I just want to stress upon one particular situation, that this is a new field for the doctor's children. आता सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे आपल्या डॉक्टरांची मुलं डॉक्टर कोणी होतच नाही. Everybody wants to go an engineer or an entrepreneur. But this field at ABCD, which was there in my introduction side, artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, data mining, these are the 4 alphabets of future. So if you have got somebody really smart enough in your family, ask him to venture into this particular field. There is one organization which is based in Delhi. They are having a entrepreneurship development course going on right now. If you are interested, you just send me your mail or mobile number, and I will be in a position to give you all that. It is the entrepreneurship development program on telemedicine. That is something really very good. And ask all your IME people to be part of consumers of DigiShield and see the difference, how does it make in their practice. Patients are also very happy because they get a very proper prescription. They did not take a printout, or they did not go for asking what is the spelling of this particular medicine. Dr. Jyoti, I can see you. Madam, can you ask these people to all the IME people in small places? You know, I am not worried about Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Kolhapur or Nagpur, but the district places, this particular point should be percolated.
Yes,
People,
yes, surely.
people have got very different ideas about telemedicine. They think that you have to have a very fancy system, and then you have to all. Many of the times in WhatsApp, I never use my fingers to type WhatsApp. I do all my voice assisted typing. There's so many simple things in life, but our doctors are really technophobic. They don't want to adapt to this kind of things. So if you talk to your IMA officials, I will be in a very simple way, workshop format, we can teach all these people. Sanket, you also agree to this, no?
Yeah, and absolutely, and sir, I am one of those persons. If you look at my family, everybody's a doctor, and I got into health IT and technology. So to the extent that I can personally enable this, I've had a 20-year stint in building businesses around healthcare. So I'd be more than happy to volunteer my time and talk to people in whatever capacity, and specifically doctors. I think there is a tremendous opportunity to do better here, and we can work
These
together.
are the commonest to 2-3 phobias. You have to know typing, then you have to have got a very high-end system, not necessary.
Yeah, not necessary. Yeah.
No, not at all necessary. Yeah. And the learning curve is very simple. Learning curve is not that bad. Harish म्हणला ना की you are very, तू जर ओल्ड असला तर लेका माझा तर 74 ऍडमिशन बॅच आहे. आम्ही तर मोहनदारो हरप्पा मधले ना. We are all ancient physicians.
Yes, experienced physicians.
Yeah, but ophthalmology is one branch which has made the best use of telemedicine.
Best use of telemedicine.
Yes.
No doubt about it. Just one question before we leave. Have schedule O anybody? With this means I was not aware that for conjunctivitis I have to give a prescription. I have to type it on WhatsApp and send it. So that's illegal.
No. Harish,
how do I remember A, O, H, B? Impossible.
Yeah, this classification, I said to you, it is in the still gray area. They'll have to work it out. Now for conjunctivitis, drug, it's okay. But the feedback from when the use becomes universal, then the feedback starts, then the drugs are classified. This is only the beginning by the National Board has prescribed that such and such things should be done.
Girish, तुला मी कटिंग पाठवलं न्यूजपेपरचं. The pharmacy board is not in touch with the telecommunication authorities. So they have classified the drugs in a different way. And if you really want to see the schedule of drugs, there are 680 drugs. Well, if you want to purchase headache, I will send it to you all by email. But there is a big, it is not fight, it is a collaboration going on between the Pharmacy Council of India and the Telemedicine Council of India. So they are going to realign the drugs. Now, some simple situation, can you prescribe insulin? Can you prescribe insulin, Dr. Mule, can you prescribe insulin on telemedicine? Right now the answer is no. Can you prescribe to a patient who is not staying in India? The answer is no. So there are certain limitations, and See, we are all in a free country, free democratic country. If you have got any problem with example, you directly write to these people. They have to answer you. If they don't answer you, send a CC to the PMO office. Then
As I told you,
100%.
that it is a evolving technology.
Yeah.
Things will keep on changing dynamically.
Okay.
You have to give a practical example. So Harish, even if you write that conjunctivitis eye drops, if I cannot say, you write down the practicing ophthalmologist in the wonderful country. Why I should need a permission of
Yes.
pharmacy council to write some simple antibiotic. So
Thank you,
there-
everyone. Thank you,
So,
everyone.
so Dr. Sriram, just single question, and to Girish also. If anybody decides to carry out only telemedicine, we won't have any consulting room with us. Is it legal or is it possible?
It's the
It
question
will
of
be legal
legality.
with restrictions, because if you go overboard, as I told you, if you start treating by teleconsultation a myocardial infarction involving myocardial infarction or thrombotic patient, it is going overboard. You cannot do it. You can do general practice maybe at the most.
Okay, hospital. We can hospitalize the patient
Yes,
instead of
you
having
can do
our own
teleconsultation.
consultation room.
And you should have a team of competent people who are working on behalf of you. See,
Standby.
there is a concept called as the physician assistant who need not be a doctor, but you must tell him how to examine for liver, how to see for spleen, how to see for rhonchi, how to see for grapes, and all the things are, they are filled in the clinical record. In US and so many European countries, the paucity of doctors is very significant. So these are all the things are done by nurses and the physician assistants. They are official. They are in between the doctor and the nurses.
So it means whatever telemedicine medicines which we prescribe, that is responsibility to give correctly to the patients is it goes to pharmacist or it's doctor's responsibility.
Pharmacist will only on the recommendation. And the recommendation.
When we are giving prescriptions on telemedicine, it is on WhatsApp or it is some printed this one. We are not there to check the medicines at that time. How it goes?
Then the onus goes to the pharmacist. Because prescription properly, it is not a
onus goes to pharmacist.
Anyway, you can read it very well because the printed prescription, and it will be the duty of the pharmacist to read it carefully and give the prescription correctly.
Okay.
There is one more question, sir. If we give teleconsultation, how far is it liable? It's liable like a medical legally. Does it?
I told you, judiciary is going to decide in future, not today, because it is up to the judiciary to decide whether there is negligence in giving a telemedicine or because it properly done, and it is up to you to prove that you have done it properly, and it will be up to the consumer or the patient to prove that you have done it wrongly, and the judiciary will weigh between who is wrong and who is right.
No, I am asking the difference between a paid and a free.
See, paid and free have no difference in Consumer Protection Act. Even if in your lifetime you have charged a single patient a 1 rupee, your all 1,000 patients are eligible to go to consumer court against you.
Yeah, the answer to Jyoti's question is the patient can send the photographs of the tablets or liquids, whatever he has consumed. Secondly, the pharmacist, when the P is removed from the word pharmacist, it becomes a pharmacist. So pharmacist has a very good role and they have to counsel the patient in how to take it. आपल्याकडे जेवणापूर्वी म्हणजे जेवणाच्या नंतर का असं विचारणारे पण लोक आहेत. There are certain medicines which are to be taken before food, after food. You have to write it very clearly. आणि डॉक्टर मोळे यांचं तुम्हाला तुमच्या प्रश्नाचं उत्तर असं आहे की मला जर कोणी फोन केला तर मी पहिल्यांदा त्यांना सांगतो की येस आय एम प्रॅक्टिसिंग. दिस इज द 40th year of my practice of clinical medicine. I do a paid video consultations. My first consultation charge is 900 rupees. We approximately standard consultation lasts for 12 to 15 minutes, and the reconsultation after 7 days or 10 days is 600 rupees, around 6 to 10 minutes. So the things are very clear. Sometime, if you want, now Girish, you come in between. Can we record this call?
Of course, you can record.
Can we record this call and preserve with us as a proof that you have told them that ते चंदीगडच्या डॉक्टरचं तुम्हाला माहित सगळ्यात किती व्हायरल झालं होतं सुरुवातीला, तुम्हाला कसले पैसे द्यायचे, आम्ही इतके वर्ष तुमचे फॅमिली डॉक्टर आहेत, यु नो ऑल द थिंग्स सेड अँड डन लाईक दॅट वॉट एव्हर द अशी उद्घोषणा होते ना विमानामध्ये, मुंबई से दिल्ली जाने वाली फ्लाइट में आपका स्वागत है, सर द टेली कंसल्टेशन में आपका स्वागत है. The teleconsultation is going to cost you so much.
Yeah, I will tell you 4 principles of precaution. One, document. One is the communicate. Communicate the documentation and document communication.
Communication. Yes.
It covers everything.
There are certain platforms. There are certain prescription platforms or the e-medicine platforms which charge 5 to 10% of the charges as their professional charge.
Yes, they charge it too.
So
like
you have to be very careful. What I do is I got a Google Pay account. If say somebody says that he doesn't have Google Pay account, I send him my blank check number, and really within 5 minutes I get the money. Till today, of the thousands of patients which I have seen on telemedicine, not a single patient has ditched me for even 100 rupees. I can share one WhatsApp message with Harish, the same hyponatremia patient, because they were worried. There is some relatives in US, they said that it is incompatible with life. Grandmother will die, and how the hell this doctor is treating in home for 72 hours. So these are the advantages and our clinical judgment. So we have to make a perfect balance. Technology is one on the other side. We have got your brain on the other side, your clinical experience, your social norms. आता काही पेशंट्स इतके मॉरिबंड असतात we can't do anything for that. What is the point in getting that patient to the hospital, you know, putting the patient on ventilator, dialyze them, put all the tubes and all catheters to them. When you know the outcome, there is no point in wasting the resource. That is one very good advantage. And if you are interested, there is an Israeli company. You can write as a IMS Solapur to that Israeli company. They have got very beautiful monitors which do remote monitoring. Means COVID recovery patients. Means the patient is sitting in Jodhbavi Pet and the doctor somewhere else in Solapur can monitor the SpO2 and pulse rate of the patient on his smartphone or on his technology. On his I will send you the link of that. And you write to these people, they are costly, these instruments are costly, but if you are the organization, if you talk to them, they will reduce the rate. This is for remote science monitoring, and it is going to be the hit and hot topic after 2022. So many Indian patents are there, and you'll feel very good to see the Indian names as one of the people who participate into that. In case of any requirements for such type of inputs, you are free to contact.
Yes, sir, definitely, sir, definitely. And it was a very informative session from everyone, and all our doubts have been cleared, and we are confident that we will land into the telemedicine era. And I thank everybody. Thank you. Thanks a lot, and good night.
Okay.